With only hours left before his execution, his final request wasn't for a last meal or a phone call. It was to see his dog one last time. But what happened next would silence the prison, freeze the guards, and unravel a truth buried for years. That morning, the air inside the penitentiary felt heavier, as if the very walls knew what was coming. Every sound, the clink of keys, the echo of boots on concrete, carried a weight that pressed down on everyone inside. In his cell, Michael sat on the edge of his cot, hands loosely clasped, eyes fixed on the cold floor. He wasn't the same man who had walked in 7 years ago. Time and regret had carved deep lines into his face, softening the once sharp defiance in his eyes. The guards expected the usual last request, a steak dinner, a call to family, maybe a final letter. But when the warden asked, Michael's voice was low and steady. "I want to see Duke, my dog." A pause filled the room. Some guards exchanged glances. A condemned man choosing a dog over people? Unheard of. But for Michael, Duke wasn't just a pet. He was the only one who had stood by him. Before the arrest, before the trial, before the world turned its back. In his final hours, he didn't want forgiveness from strangers. He just wanted to look into the eyes that had never judged him. The warden leaned back, fingers steepled. He'd seen strange last requests before. Ice cream, a guitar, even a priest who never showed up. But bringing a dog into a maximum security prison on execution day? Never. In the control room, officers debated. "It's a security risk," one said. "We've never allowed an animal in here, especially for a death row inmate." An older officer, quieter, spoke up. "Duke is all he has left. No visitors, no letters, no one. Maybe we should let him go in peace." The warden requested Michael's file. His record was clean, no fights, no escape attempts. In the notes, it said he had owned a German shepherd named Duke for 8 years. The dog had been seized at the time of arrest. After a long silence, the warden nodded. "Under strict supervision. Yard only." 10 minutes. Word spread fast. Some guards shook their heads. Others whispered about the bond between a man and his dog. For Michael, those 10 minutes would be an eternity. Somewhere out there, Duke was on his way, and neither of them knew how much this moment would change everything. The prison yard stood still as the far gate creaked open. Michael stood a few feet from a lone chair, wrists cuffed loosely in front of him, eyes locked on the entrance. Then he saw him. Duke trotted in, his black and tan coat gleaming under the pale morning light. 2 officers flanked him, leash taut. But it was clear Duke had already spotted his man. His ears shot forward, his tail began to wag. Slow at first, then faster, like a drumbeat finding its rhythm. Michael's breath caught. Years had passed, but nothing, the gray in Duke's muzzle, the slight stiffness in his legs, could disguise the dog he had raised from a pup. The officers glanced at the warden. A single nod. The leash slackened. Duke surged forward. Michael dropped to his knees just as the dog slammed into his chest, pressing his head into Michael's shoulder, whining, a sound caught between joy and grief. For a moment, the prison vanished. No countdown, no death order. Just a man and his dog reunited. Michael buried his face in the thick fur, breathing in the scent. Old leather, earth, home. Memories flooded back. Long walks, muddy paws, quiet nights when Duke's steady breathing kept him from falling apart. But then Duke froze. His body went rigid. Tail stopped mid-wag. Ears pivoted. A deep, guttural growl rumbled from his chest. Michael felt it before he heard it. Duke wasn't looking at him anymore. His gaze was locked on a man standing 10 feet away. Officer Barrett, tall, stiff, hands clasped behind his back. The growl deepened, teeth bared in silent warning. Guards shifted uneasily. "Control your dog," one muttered, stepping forward. But Michael placed a hand on Duke's back. "Easy, boy," he whispered. "It's okay." It wasn't. Duke had never growled like this without reason. Barrett avoided eye contact, jaw tight. Michael's mind raced. He knew his dog's instincts, and Duke was never wrong. For the first time that morning, curiosity stirred. Something about this man was setting Duke off. And in a place where every second counted, instincts, especially a dog's, could mean everything. Later that afternoon, the warden summoned Michael to a small interview room. Duke was allowed to stay, still watching the door like a sentinel. Officer Ramirez, a guard who had always treated Michael with quiet respect, stood in the corner. Barrett stood across from them, stiff, eyes cold. The warden spoke. "Barrett, why didn't you disclose that you were on site the night of Michael's arrest?" Barrett's jaw tightened. "Didn't think it mattered. I was off duty, just passing by." Duke let out a sharp bark, loud, sudden. His eyes locked on Barrett, growl rising like thunder. Ramirez stepped forward. "Funny, because a witness just came forward. Said they saw a man matching your description leaving Michael's house before the police arrived." The warden's expression darkened. "We're reopening the case. Effective immediately, the execution is delayed." Michael felt the air rush back into his lungs. Not freedom, not yet, but hope. Barrett glared at him, but it didn't matter. For the first time in years, the truth had a crack to slip through, and it all started with a dog who refused to forget. The investigation moved fast. The new witness, the retested fingerprints, they didn't belong to Michael. They matched Barrett. Weeks passed. More evidence surfaced. Barrett had been at the scene. He had planted evidence. He had committed the crime. He was arrested, charged with the same murder Michael had been sentenced for. The prosecution dropped the charges. The prison gates, once the end of Michael's life, now swung open to set him free. And there, just beyond the fence, was Duke, tail wagging, eyes bright. Michael dropped to his knees, buried his face in the fur, and whispered, "We made it, boy. We made it." He stepped forward. No cuffs, no guards, no walls, just open sky and the sound of their footsteps on free ground. The world hadn't changed much, but Michael had. He wasn't the man defined by a sentence. He was the man his dog had believed in all along. And now, thanks to that loyalty, he had a second chance to live and to prove Duke right. This story reminds us that love doesn't need words. That loyalty doesn't care about courtrooms or time. Sometimes the truth doesn't come from